My fiancé's best friend is making my life a living hell. My fiancé has the biggest heart. He would literally give you the shirt, pants, and hat off his body if you asked for it. He's a recovering people pleaser, and I get it because I also used to be a people pleaser. We've been together for 5+ years. A few months ago, I started picking up on his best friend making some not-so-nice comments towards me. I'm trying to be vague, but let's just say this friend is the type to read who in the room would be most affected by being picked on, and then he picks and picks and picks on them until they can't take it anymore. Nobody ever really holds him accountable for this, and unfortunately, I have somehow become his favorite target. I tried to put up with these comments, but it started getting really elaborate. The friend would make up lies about me, saying things I never said. He once called me in front of all our friends, including my fiancé, just to yell "you're a bad friend" into the phone and then hang up. There's so much to it that I can't share because I'm trying to be somewhat anonymous. It started having an effect on me and my mental health, and I ended up having a full breakdown where I told my fiancé how much this was all starting to hurt me. The first time I broke down over this, he said he would talk to his friend about teasing or messing with me less. He then told me that his friend was sorry, and that he'd be keeping an ear out for any other comments and he'd jump to my defense if it happened again. A few weeks later, I had a second breakdown over all of this. The situation itself is hitting a very specific childhood trauma or trigger for me. My boyfriend then admitted that his friend didn't actually apologize. He actually said he was sorry I was too sensitive to understand his humor. At that point, I told my fiancé, my friendship with this person is over, and I want zero contact from here on out, even if it means I have to miss out on events and parties that I'd otherwise love to go to. He agreed with me that all of this is being done with the intention to get a rise out of me, and that even if we tried to get through to his friend, he's so diabolical that we could never fully trust him to not treat me at least a little bit crappy. My fiancé kept asking if this meant he had to quit the project they're working on. I told him I would never tell him he had to because I know how much it means to him, but in all honesty, the fact that this person is treating me so poorly that I'm having physical stress reactions isn't enough for him to want to cut this person off does hurt a lot. The fact that it isn't a deal breaker for him is probably always going to sting a little. He's not confrontational at all, and I always knew that, but it's not about confrontation. It's about standing in my corner. I can't spend the rest of my life with someone who isn't in my corner. This friend is getting married to my best friend in a few months, and we're both supposed to be in the wedding. But I really have no clue. I get a literal knot in my stomach anytime his name is even mentioned. Now I have seen this friend one time since all of this came to a head, and he was so over the top nice to me that it came off as cocky. I had the second breakdown a few days afterwards because I realized I'm possibly going to spend the rest of my life on edge, and on guard anytime this person is even somewhat in my vicinity, even if they aren't actively effing with me. I don't know how to come to terms with the fact that my fiancé was willing to lie to me on his crappy friend's behalf. He's not willing to stand in my corner against him, and I think it'll always hurt. This guy was supposed to be the best man in our wedding, and as a result we haven't been talking much about wedding plans. I think if he's still planning on having this friend at our wedding, I may have to call it off for my own sanity, and that sucks so bad. This is effing eating me alive. I love my fiancé so much. I love his big heart and the way he loves with all of it. But he loves some truly wretched people, and I don't know if he'll enforce any boundaries with those people before the lack of boundaries becomes too much for me to handle. I'm just hurt and hurting, and I just want whatever outcome to play out so I can stop feeling so guilty and awful all the time. Well, I think the fact that when you told them you were having breakdowns, like mental breakdowns, and he asked you if this meant he needed to quit his project because his friend was in it, that speaks volumes. Now, I understand that you mentioned he was a recovering people pleaser and that he's non-confrontational, but at some point you have to be disagreeable. There has to be a line in the sand, and I think my fiancé is behind that line. You come at her, you come at me, but no, again, his concern was his project that he was working on. On top of that, he lied. He told you that his friend apologized, but instead it was one of those BS apologies about, "I'm sorry you feel this way, op. You've already had 2 breakdowns because of this, and it doesn't seem like your boyfriend is willing to do what needs to be done. So, I think you need to make a decision. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments section." And now, let's move on to the community comments. "She's a villain," says one comment. "What does your best friend say about his behavior? Whether you end your engagement to your fiancé, your best friend is still marrying him." Op responds, I have my own feelings towards what she's going through. I think she's being love-bombed and gaslit, and I've seen some proof of it with my own eyes. She was there for the bad friend comment and kind of defended him. I know she's so love-struck that she's probably going to choose him, and it kills me. But I'm trying really hard to step back in a way that doesn't totally burn my bridge with her. In the end, when he gets that ring on her finger, I have a feeling he will be a different man to her, and she'll need support. I'll be there when she needs me. No Butterscotch 8635 says, "Oh man, weird sad face. I know how crappy it feels from past experience, but if I were you, I wouldn't even be in the wedding, let alone go to it. Your boundary is to keep him at a distance because he can't give you the simple respect of human decency in this situation. You have to protect yourself if your fiancé won't." Op responds, "I think I come closer to the conclusion that I can't be in this wedding. Every day, I'm just trying to save as much face as possible, the less nuclear the better. This guy wants me to look crazy. I refuse to give him that." A no statement says, "How old are you and your fiancé? You sound very young. What kind of breakdowns are you having? Are you taking prescription drugs to regulate your emotions? Are you diagnosed as having anxiety or depression? If not, just look the bully in the eye and say F off. Don't shift your eyes, just stare at him and clean your nails with a knife. I'm joking, but you seem incredibly young and vulnerable. Your boyfriend or fiancé is immature and insecure. He's not going to protect you from a bully. And your friend is a doormat. Leave and don't look back because this jerk has everyone under his heel, including you. But you can choose to walk away." Op responds, "All of us are in our late 20s, way too effing old for this kind of behavior. I'm diagnosed with major depressive disorder and PTSD. I know this situation makes me look like I have -829 in self-respect, but I did all the work for myself that my fiancé is struggling to do for himself for us now. I cut out the crappy people in my life with no remorse whatsoever and haven't looked back even once. It's just so much harder when the bridge isn't mine to burn, and burning it hurts some of the people I care about deeply and want to make a future with. All of these facts can exist in tandem with the fact that this situation isn't sustainable, and something has to change. I feel awful. He has to make a choice and possibly lose the longest friendship in his life. But I've also made it very clear to him at this point that the alternative is losing me, because we know this behavior isn't going to change. I don't trust it, and I have no faith that he'll ever be a real friend to me. The community agrees that Op needs to decide whether she wants to stay or not. It sounds like Op understands that, but she is still so much in love that it's difficult to make the decision. So now let's move on to the first of two updates to see what happened next. It's been a month since my last post, and I want you all to know my partner absolutely came through and protected me in this. We spent all this time since my last post up until last week communicating and trying to find a resolution, and walking through how it got this bad. He took a lot of accountability for that. This is not the case of me giving in. He understands fully that this has only got so bad because it's never been handled correctly, and he had a major hand in that. There were so many more layers to this than a post ever could have conveyed. The bottom line is we are closer than ever. After a lot of talking, we decided on my partner sending a firm but not unkind message to his friend, explaining the behaviors, explaining that they were hurting his partner, and that it needed to stop. He asked to write up the first draft and we could go over it together to try to perfect it. Please know the first draft my partner wrote was so spot on to what I needed to read that it instantly shifted us into us versus the problem mode, when we'd been stuck butting heads for weeks. He laid everything out so clearly and in ways that we hadn't discussed, so I know it came from him. We had to tone down a lot of the big emotions. We really truly gave the message its best shot to address the situation without being hostile. We knew the response would be bad no matter what, but I don't think anything could have prepared us. This man went full scorched earth and blew up almost everything immediately. He insulted my partner. He told him these events didn't happen the way I claim they do. He demanded they meet up alone with a mediator. And then he threatened to reach out to my partner's parents to fill them in, which is probably the moment we stopped taking his responses seriously. All of us are almost in our 30s. If once wasn't enough, he threatened it twice. We actually had to call them and warn them that he would be showing up at their place later this week and not to open the door. There's still a good chance he'll attempt it. We stayed respectful throughout all of this, which I feel good about. We didn't stoop to his level. We didn't insult anyone. We asked for basic human respect. and somehow it blew up spectacularly in the end. We both received a massive wall of text from my now ex-best friend, fully backing up her man and telling her side of the story, which is so insanely far off from what actually happened that all I can do is laugh. We've been shifting from crying to being dumbstruck to just straight up laughing because of the absurdity. I went into this thinking she was brainwashed, but it turns out I was wrong. They are a perfect match. I wish them all the best. I am sending them one last message, setting the record straight, which my partner and I decided together was the best approach apart from just ghosting. Before moving on from this entirely, I'm going to make it very clear. This is done, zero contact indefinitely, and I will never look back. My partner and I both deserve way better friends, and we both see that so clearly now. I am so effing glad I learned my friend's true colors before we dropped $800 on a hotel for their wedding. Thank you to everyone who was kind. Not only did I put myself first in the end, but my partner did too. We're going to take this weekend stride and process it all. Grieve the friendships we once thought were forever. At the end of the week, we have a conveniently timed vacation to my partner's family cottage. I think we're going to come out of this stronger because we already feel it. Again, thank you to those who had something productive to say, and I've made my peace with all the rest. I guess if the guy does something else outlandish, maybe I'll update, but for now this chapter is closed, and I'm so ready for it to start collecting dust. Well, I for one am very happy for Op that I was absolutely wrong. However, we still do have another update, so let's move on with that to see how this story ends. Hey y'all, I told myself I wouldn't update again, but there has been a pretty massive development. Not sure if anyone is really that invested in this crap show, but it's actually helped me to type it out the first couple of times, so maybe I'll feel a bit better if I do it again. So, a few weeks ago the a-hole showed his entire hand. He sent my partner a message at 11 a.m. on a Monday, and it's the most unhinged crap I've ever read. The a-hole said he believed my partner is in an abusive relationship, and that he should leave me for his own happiness. He claimed he has evidence to support this. He admitted this was the big message he would have given had they met in person in the very beginning. He also told them he was worried sending the message would make things even worse for my partner if I saw it. He said I am someone he can never forgive and will never want to associate with ever again. He ended it by saying he hopes he'll leave me so my partner can apologize for breaking up the band. Yes, it was a band and they can start to repair their friendship. Obviously a whole lot to digest. I know you don't know me, but I am obviously not abusing my partner. I shouldn't even have to clarify that, but I will anyways. This guy is 100% excommunicated from our lives indefinitely, not that he already wasn't at that point. In light of this new information, I'd like to share some of the things the a-hole has done over the past year or so that made me realize he was effing with me but didn't clock it at the time because, much like some of you, I thought I was just being sensitive. One of my partner and I joined some pals, including a-hole, to play a game together online, Lethal Company if you're familiar. I have many hours in the game and know the monsters quite well, so I was pretty confused when I was slaughtered by a Bracken 3 game days in a row, almost immediately upon entering the facility and splitting from the group. I mentioned at one point that I'd be having a lot more fun if I wasn't dying so quickly every time, and the a-hole mockingly said it must be a skill issue. After a few more deaths, this time with me at least getting to explore a bit before getting my neck snapped, I asked if anyone had the Control Company mod installed, which allows a server host to play as the monsters. Suddenly, the a-hole had to go, and the lobby conveniently disbanded. I never brought my suspicions up to anyone because I knew it would be my word against his, and I had no solid proof. So I wasn't positive when I finally mentioned it to my partner a couple of weeks ago, after that text was sent. He told me he remembers the a-hole staying on the ship and secretly going AFK multiple times in the game, which lines up pretty perfectly with my in-game deaths. 2. When I said the a-hole was being too nice, the time we saw him after my partner called him about his comments affecting me. I don't think I explained it right. My partner and I were sitting at a table at a local show, and the a-hole sat next to me, not my partner, and wouldn't stop touching my arm and asking me if I was enjoying the show. Multiple times he would just stare at me and grin as wide as he could. If I had just been told I hurt my friend's partner, I don't think I'd be all over them the way this guy was to me. Hell, if it were me, I'd at least throw a sorry about the other night their way. It felt like he was gloating that he got away with it, and it was comically over the top, making me and my partner very uncomfortable. We talked on the drive home and we both felt the same about it. 3. I was hanging out with my friend at her place and Ale was there, so we all decided to head to my place and hang out with my partner as a foursome. Right before we left, Ale asked if I knew our mutual friend's big secret. I did not. I'm also not very close with this friend. My friend already knew and told them they should just tell me because I wouldn't be that invested. But Ale told her my partner didn't know yet and they couldn't tell me until we all got to my place and told him. He kept going on about how big the secret was and insisted that I'd freak out once I knew. I made a comment about how we were taking different cars, and there was a chance my friend would just tell me on the way, so he looked her dead in the face and told her that he'd be genuinely upset with her if she told me before he told my partner. We respected that. When we got to my place, it was obvious my partner already knew the big secret, simply that our friend was dating someone. I found out later that Ale had called my partner the minute he got to his car and told him, and that both me and my friend didn't know, and they should put on a big show of telling both of us together. My partner had known for weeks, and the friend group had openly discussed it a few times, and it hadn't come up with me because, as I said, I'm not very close with this friend. I got baited. LOL, truly exhausting behavior. My partner had no idea what happened until I told him about the conversation at Ale's place. And my friend didn't say a word in my defense. I typed out exactly why this was ridiculous once all this came to a head, and they both refused to even acknowledge it. 4. I dyed my hair blue, and my first outing with the new hair was with the whole group. I went all out on my makeup and outfit and was pretty stoked on it. I'm not exaggerating in the slightest when I say the a-hole made 20+ jokes about my hair in the span of about 15 minutes. It was pretty much every time he interacted with me, which he seemed to go out of his way to do, specifically so he could make jokes about my hair. If you've ever had blue hair, then you've probably heard most of the jokes he was making. I laughed along for the first few. I can definitely handle banter, as it's a huge part of almost all of my friendships. But after about 20 jokes, I finally said it was getting old and asked if he had anything nice to say. He responded by making another 5 jokes with a big crap-eating grin on his face, and implied I was too sensitive. There truly was no off switch with the guy. Anyways, just wanted you all to know I'm not crazy. The a-hole has literally been trying to drive me mad for at least a year, and it almost worked. My partner and I have had many conversations about all this, and I know a lot of people had a lot to say about him. But please know this was eating both of us alive. He wanted to make things work so badly. He wanted to at least try to salvage their 20+ year friendship. But he understands now that was never possible. And he knows neither of us deserves to be treated the way the a-hole treated us. This was never just about me. If he was a good friend to my partner, maybe things would be different and we could have tried harder to get through to him. But this is just who he is at his core. He's known for being a prick for no reason and lying about it, and there's no space in either of our lives for that. Anyways, I doubt the a-hole can top that message, so this is the last update I'll give. My partner and I are coming out of this way stronger. The a-hole has completely brainwashed my friend, and I've made my peace with it. She can have him, LOL. Godspeed to the both of them. Thanks to all who showed understanding. Hopefully, this is all going to be behind us very soon, once the dust fully settles. Hardo wow op. This guy, people like this guy are the ones that make me think, that's the sperm that got to the egg. Like that was the best one in the whole sample. Man, the other ones must have been complete crap. But the good thing for you both, op, is that he's now out of your lives, and he's your ex-best friend's problem. So hopefully now you guys can go back to planning your wedding. Take care, op, and thanks for sharing. And that's it for today's story.